like a devil whispering across her shoulder. Hey everyone, Henriello here, welcome back. Today we are going to watch Hitchcock's Rebecca, which is Hitchcock's first ever American project. Now the poster here looks very interesting. It kind of seems like a woman has a canvas painting smashed through her head. And it makes me wonder if this is the picture which won the Best Picture award. It might be because it's quite creative. And this week, as you all know, I'm going to watch 2 more Hitchcock movie reactions. And the first one that I've chosen is Rebecca, one of his earlier films. Of course, there are earlier ones such as The Lady Vanishes and The 39 Steps, but I'll save them for the future. And the second movie, I've chosen one of his later films, which is from the 1950s, so you can make your guess as to what movie that might be. And there are so many more movies which I haven't watched yet. But I plan to, after this week, I plan to watch some other movies first, maybe some other genres or something. And then later on, I can come back to Hitchcock movies fresh. I also want to thank you guys for your comments, sharing the info, sharing your thoughts, and then, just letting me know that you enjoy the reaction because I'm happy to hear that. And as we know, Christmas is coming soon. So, you can start thinking about what Christmas movies you'd like to see me watch and let me know in the comments because later on I'm probably going to do maybe a poll or something for Christmas. I'm still thinking about it, but I'll welcome any Christmas movie suggestions. So just let me know in the comments. Oh yeah, this is also considered a romance, well, part romance movie, isn't it? It does sound like it through the music.
Last night, I dreamt I went to Mandalay again. I was possessed of a sudden with supernatural powers and passed like a spirit through the barrier before me.
Oh, how'd they do that with the camera?
Time could not mar the perfect symmetry of those walls. And suddenly it seemed to me that light came from the windows.
Are they narrating the entire novel?
Then a cloud came upon the moon and hovered an instant like a dark hand before a face. The illusion went with it. We can never go back to Mandalay again. That much is certain.
Pretty nice narration.
Stop! I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stare, but I only thought...
Oh, you did it. You get on with your walking. Don't hang about here screaming.
It did seem like he was about to jump. Maybe she did save his life.
Not a single well-known personality in the hotel. Just when I was beginning to despair of finding any old friends here in Monte. Mr. DeWitter's having some coffee with me. Go and ask the stupid waiter for another cup. If I had a home like Mandalay, I should certainly never come to Monte.
What do you think of Monte Carlo?
Well, I think it's rather artificial.
Most girls would give their eyes for a chance to see Monte.
Wouldn't that rather defeat the purpose?
True.
He travels fastest who travels alone. Perhaps you've not heard of it. Good night.
What do you make of that? I remember when I was younger, there was a well-known writer who used to dart down the back way whenever he saw me coming. I suppose he was in love with me and wasn't quite sure of himself.
Are you sure about that?
Your effort to enter the conversation quite embarrassed me, and I'm sure it did him. Men loathe that sort of thing. I suppose he just can't get over his wife's death. They say he simply adored her.
Mrs. Van Hopper is quite a character herself. A little full of herself.
Oh, leave that. Go and lay another place at my table. Mademoiselle will have lunch with me.
Oh, but I couldn't possibly.
I should have asked you to have lunch with me, even if you hadn't upset the vase so clumsily. Come along.
I'll just have some scrambled eggs.
Oui, mademoiselle. Is Mrs. Van Hopper a friend of yours, or just a relation?
No, she's my employer. I'm what is known as a paid companion.
Oh.
Haven't you any family?
My mother died years and years ago, and then there was only my father, and he died last summer. He had a theory that if you should find one perfect thing or place or person, you should stick to it. Do you think that's very silly?
Not at all.
Are you going sketching this afternoon?
Yes.
I'll drive you somewhere in the car.
Oh, no, please, I didn't mean...
Oh, nonsense. Finish up that mess and we'll get along.
I'm not very hungry.
Oh, come on, eat it up.
Then why did you order scrambled eggs? She's probably nervous.
You've taken long enough for that sketch. I shall expect a really fine work of art. Oh, dear. Tell me, is it the perspective that gives my nose that curious twist in the middle?
And I asked her how it was, and the old lady said, that's Mandalay.
Mandalay.
Now, I don't suppose I shall ever see it again.
Why?
There's a man who drowned here last year. I never have any fear of drowning, have you?
Oh no, he's gone into sadness. Must be remembering his lost wife.
I know Mr. DeWitt well. I knew his wife, too. Before she married, she was the beautiful Rebecca Hildreth, you know.
Rebecca. Oh, she drowned. No wonder he got sadder when she mentioned drowning.
I thought I'd take a tennis lesson.
Oh, I see. I suppose you've had a look at the pro, and he's desperately handsome. All right, go ahead and make the most of it.
Off duty?
Oh, yes, Mrs. Van Hopper's cold's turned into flu, so she's got to train nurse.
I'm sorry for the nurse.
Sorry for the nurse.
You got on rather well with him, didn't you? That pro must have been teaching you other things than tennis.
She just put that in the cleansing cream. Why don't you return my calls, you naughty man, as soon as I get over this nasty old cold? I promise to keep you from being bored here in Monty. Because I know that's just what you must be. Bored on fond friendship. Wow. Took some effort to read that. Mrs. Van Hopper is chasing after Mr. De Winter, but she doesn't even know that her paid companion is with Mr. De Winter.
May I go now?
For the number of lessons you've had, you ought to be ready for Wimbledon. But this will be your last, so make the most of it.
Did we ever get the girl's name? No, right? I don't have it here.
I wish there could be an invention that bottled up the memory like perfume.
What particular moment in your young life would you want to keep?
Oh, all of them.
This moment.
Sometimes, you know, those little bottles contain demons that have a way of popping out at you just as you're trying most desperately to forget.
He speaks from experience.
I wish I were a woman of 36, dressed in black satin with a string of pearls.
You wouldn't be here with me if you were.
Why do you choose me for your chat?
You've blotted out the past for me more than all the bright lights of Monte Carlo. But if you think I just asked you out of kindness or charity, you can leave the car now and find your own way home. Open the door and get out.
He's smooth, but aggressive at the same time.
George Fortescue Maximilian. My family call me Maxie. Please promise me never to wear black satin or pearls.
Yes, Maxie.
I guess he likes a simple woman. He's fallen for her and she for him. Well, isn't that romantic?
My daughter's engaged to be married.
Oh, really? How nice.
We must leave for New York at once. Get reservations on the Aquitania.
I'll go and see if there's anything left in my room. Has Mr. De Winter come in yet? Oh, he has. Would you connect me, please? Oh,
Come on, the car's waiting at the door.
Oh, it connects to the operator directly. Doesn't even have any dials on it. No numbers.
Would you ring Mr. De Winter, please?
Yes, madame.
Oh, the timing.
Tell her to hurry up.
Yes, madame. Come in.
I've come to say goodbye. We're going away.
Where's she taking you to?
New York. I don't want to go. I shall hate it. I shall be miserable.
Which would you prefer, New York or Mandalay? Either you go to America with Mrs. Van Hopper or you come home to Mandalay with me.
You mean you want a secretary or something?
I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool.
You little fool. That's like a dream come true for her, isn't it?
Is that my food? I'm famished. I didn't have any breakfast.
Breakfast on wheels.
I'm not the sort of person men marry.
What on earth
What do you mean?
I don't belong in your sort of world, for one thing.
I'm the best judge of whether you belong there or not.
I love you most dreadfully. I've been crying all morning because I thought I'd never see you again.
I'll remind you of this one day, and you won't believe me. It's a pity you have to grow up.
Mr. De Winter says, please, for you to come up to his room.
Why, certainly.
Oh no. I'm not sure how she would react.
This isn't at all your idea of a proposal, is it? It should be in a conservatory, and I should be making violent love to you behind a palm tree.
Violent love.
I asked you up here in order to tell you of my engagement.
Who is the lucky lady?
I apologize for depriving you of your companion in this abrupt way.
And I suppose I ought to scold you for not having breathed a word of all of this to me. I'm very happy for you both. This poor child has no mother, so I shall take responsibility for all the arrangements, and I'll give the bride away.
Whoa.
I think we'd both prefer to have it all as quiet as possible. I'll go down and see that your luggage is brought back.
I suppose I have to hand it to you for a fast worker. How did you manage it? Still waters certainly run deep.
She seemed pretty happy a moment ago.
To be perfectly frank with you, my dear, I can't see you doing it. You haven't the experience. You haven't the faintest idea of what it means to be a great lady.
And that's exactly why Max chose her.
You haven't flattered yourself that he's in love with you. He just couldn't go on living alone.
You don't have to say all that.
Mrs. De Winter. Goodbye, my dear, and good luck.
Don't let her get you down. Mrs. Van Hopper is just a bit jealous. Yeah, the pigeons are just lining up on the steps.
Oh, Max, you're lovely.
Now we see Manderley. We saw the intro. Manderley was run down and broken.
Just be yourself and they'll all adore you. Mrs. Danvers is the housekeeper. Just leave it to her.
The person narrating the intro must have been her when she's older. Oh man, the seats are all gonna get wet.
That's it. That's Manderley.
It looks grand. I believe what we saw in the intro was probably like a miniature set that they made of Manderley. Wow, that's a lot of people.
This is Mrs. Danvers.
I have everything in readiness for you.
That's very good of you.
Come along, darling.
When those cold piercing eyes stare into your soul, it'd be hard not to feel nervous.
She'll have to look after you until your own maid arrives. It's usual for ladies in your position to have a personal maid.
Okay.
It was never used much except for occasional visitors.
Then it wasn't Mr. De Winter's room originally?
No, madam. He's never used the east wing before.
He wants to use the wing that doesn't have his ex-wife's memories.
I came here when the first Mrs. De Winter was a bride.
I do hope we'll be friends. This sort of life is new to me, and I do want to make a success of it and make Mr. De Winter happy, so...
I hope I shall do everything to your satisfaction, madam. That room in the west wing I was telling you about is there through that door. It's the most beautiful room in the house. It was Mrs. De Winter's room.
Oh, they even have a dog. R. De Winter. Well, I guess that's just how it is. The seats so far apart.
You're Mrs. De Winter, aren't you? My name's Crawley. I manage the estate for Maxim.
You'll find quantities of breakfast over there, but you must eat it all or cook will be mortally offended.
Well, I'll do my best, Maxim.
My sister Beatrice and her husband Giles Lacey have invited themselves over for lunch.
Today?
Yes. Don't worry, darling. I'll be back in time to protect you from her.
Isn't there anything I could get for you, ma'am?
Oh, no, thank you, Frith. I'm really not very hungry.
Oh, the cook will be mortally offended.
It's big, isn't it?
Yes, madam. The Lay is a big place, and the public is admitted here, you know, once a week.
Really? The public is admitted here once a week, so they can like come over and view the mansion, huh?
I'm afraid the fire is not usually lit in the library until the afternoon, but you'll find one in the morning room.
I'm sure one could get lost in this big place. Imagine having a morning room, afternoon room, night room, dining room, living room, whatever rooms you can think of. Ah, the dog is there. Rebecca De Winter.
Mrs. De Winter? Mrs. De Winter's been dead for over a year.
No, you are Mrs. De Winter.
Oh, I mean...
Well, she was nervous. Can't blame her for that.
I'd like to know if you approve of the menu. Mrs. De Winter was most particular about sauces.
let's have whatever you think that Mrs. De Winter would have ordered.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah, I guess I would be kind of nervous and tense too if I get waited on by many people. Oh, that thing must have been really fragile to break on that carpet. Oh no, there's no need to hide it. Just say that you accidentally broke it.
I wonder how she likes it now, being ordered about by an ex-chorus girl.
Now, where on earth did you get the idea she's an ex-chorus girl?
That's a pretty big door, if you notice. The doorknob was at the level of her neck.
Well, how do you like Mandler?
Very beautiful, isn't it?
That handshake.
She's not exactly an oil painting, is she?
Giles, you're very much in the way here. Go somewhere else. She's bound to be insanely jealous at first. And she must resent you bitterly.
Why should she?
She simply adored Rebecca.
Mrs. Danvers is so expressionless you wouldn't even be able to tell how she feels.
You should have them out. All of them. Wretched nuisances, teeth.
Thank you, madam.
You need teeth.
I don't even ride.
Which do you ride, side saddle or astride?
She doesn't ride.
You don't, do you?
Yeah.
Why don't you have the masquerade ball again this summer?
Rumba?
Never tried.
You must teach me. I say, but I'm trying to find out exactly what your wife does do. Don't sail, do you?
No, I don't.
Huh?
Why don't you do something about your hair? Why don't you have it cut or sweep it back behind your ears?
What do you mean? She looks just fine.
Oh, no, that's worse. Oh, well, don't go by me. I can see by the way you dress you don't care a hoot how you look.
She seems alright. They really know how to roast people without sounding like they're roasting them.
Do you like my hair?
Of course I do. What's the matter with it?
Oh, no, I just wondered.
How funny you are. Come on, Jasper, come and take some of that fat off.
Jasper. Jasper the dog.
Where does that lead to?
Oh, it leads to a little cove where we used to keep a boat.
Oh, let's go down there.
No.
Walk down and take a look at the red one, too.
It'll remind him of his wife. Ex-wife.
That's Jasper. Perhaps he's hurt himself.
No, he's all right. Leave him alone. He'll find his own way back.
Oh, there you are. Jasper.
Whoa, there's actually someone there.
I know that dog. He comes from the house.
Have you anything I could tie him with?
And she decides to go into a stranger's house. This must be where Mrs. De Winter used to frequent. That's why Max doesn't want to come here.
She's gone in the sea, ain't she? She'll never come back no more.
No, she'll never come back. Maxim, what is it? You look so angry.
You knew I didn't want you to go there, but you deliberately went. You didn't go into the cottage, did you?
Yes.
Well, don't go there again, do you hear?
Why not?
I hate the place, and if you had my memories, you wouldn't go there or talk about it or even think about it.
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
You should never have come back to Mandalay.
Somehow I've hurt you. Oh, I can't bear to see you like this, because I love you so much.
I've made you cry. Forgive me.
Yeah, his ex-wife's memories are too painful. Seriously, the doors are huge. The words embroidered on the cloths, RDW, does that all stand for Rebecca De Winter?
I was down at the cottage on the beach the other day. There was a man there, a queer sort of person.
Must have been Ben. We give him odd jobs now and then.
Are those all Rebecca's things down there?
Yes. The boat used to be moored near there.
Was that the boat she was sailing in when she was drowned?
Capsized and sank.
Where did they find her?
Washed up on the beach, I bet.
About 2 months afterwards, Maxie went up to identify her.
I feel it's such a disadvantage. I know they're all thinking the same thing. They're all comparing me with her, with Rebecca.
Oh, you mustn't think that.
I realized the things that she had and that I lacked. Beauty and wit and intelligence.
Her qualities that are just as important. Kindness, sincerity, and modesty mean more to a husband than all the wit and beauty in the world.
What was Rebecca really like?
I suppose she was the most beautiful creature I ever saw.
The most beautiful creature that you ever saw. That's your only description? I mean, he was very kind to her when he was trying to reassure her. Didn't Max tell you not to be wearing a black satin dress with pearls?
What on earth have you done to yourself?
I just ordered a new dress from London. I hope you don't mind.
Doesn't seem your type at all.
Thought you'd like it.
And what have you done to your hair? I'm sorry. You look lovely, lovely.
He loved you as you are, how you were. You don't necessarily have to change yourself.
Oh, I wish our honeymoon could have lasted forever, Maxim.
Oh, dash it, look. Oh.
Mrs. Danvers has accused Robert of stealing a valuable ornament from the morning room. Robert denies the accusation most emphatically, sir.
Maxim, I wanted to tell you, but, well, I forgot.
Yeah, just come clean.
I broke the China Cupid.
You broke it? You'll have to explain to him and Mrs. Danvers.
Oh, no, Maxim, you do it.
Don't be such a little idiot, darling. Anybody would think you were afraid of them.
I think she is, though.
Mrs. De Winter broke the cupid herself and forgot to say anything about it.
Is it possible to repair the ornament, madam?
No, I'm afraid it isn't. It was smashed into pieces.
Perhaps if such a thing happens again, Mrs. De Winter will tell me personally.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Mrs. Danvers. Why on earth should you be frightened of her?
I feel so uncomfortable. I try my best every day, but very difficult with people looking me up and down as if I were a prize cow.
Well, what does it matter if they do?
I suppose that's why you married me, because you knew I was dull and inexperienced and there'd never be any gossip about me.
Gossip? What do you mean?
What's the matter? What have I said?
I wonder if I did a very selfish thing in marrying you. I'm not much of a companion to you, am I? I'm very difficult to live with.
You're not difficult. You're easy, very easy. We're happy, aren't we? Terribly happy.
Oh, he can't even answer that.
How can I answer you when I don't know the answer myself? Happiness is something I know nothing about.
Ever since she passed away. Have gone up to London on some business of the estate. I shall return before evening, and certainly this brief holiday from me should be welcome. Now they're both unhappy. You could be served by so many people and still feel alone.
The West Wing. Nobody ever uses it anymore, do they?
No, madam.
Was that Mrs. Danvers closing the window?
I really don't think it's wise for you to come here, Mr. Jack.
Jasper, come here.
Yes, and we must be careful not to shock Cinderella, mustn't we?
Looking for me? Oh, I didn't make you jump, did I?
No.
How is dear old Max? Danny, all your precautions were in vain.
This is Mr. Favell, madam.
Won't you have some tea or something?
Well, now, isn't that a charming invitation? I have a good mind to accept.
First expression we've seen on Mrs. Danvers.
It would be very decent of you if you didn't mention this little visit to your revered husband. He doesn't exactly approve of me. I'm Rebecca's favorite cousin.
He's Rebecca's favorite cousin, and that's why Max doesn't want him around the house. Why do they have to play this creepy music? Oh. Okay, suddenly it's not creepy anymore. Damn, my heart skipped a beat.
I noticed that the window wasn't closed and I came up to see...
I closed it before I left the room. You opened it yourself, didn't you? It's a lovely room, isn't it?
Oh, yes it is.
This is where I keep all her clothes. You would like to see them, wouldn't you? It was a Christmas present from Mr. De Winter.
Oh, Mrs. Danvers really loved Rebecca, didn't she? It makes me wonder if Mrs. Danvers is trying to drive a wedge between her and Max.
Sometimes she and Mr. De Winter didn't come home until dawn. She knew everyone that mattered. Everyone loved her.
Including you.
She'd go into the bedroom and go over to the dressing table.
This entire room itself could be a house for many people.
I embroidered this case for her myself, and I keep it here always. Did you ever see anything so delicate? You can see my hand through it.
Yes, I can. She's quite good at acting nervous and timid. The way she plays the character, I mean.
You wouldn't think she'd been gone so long, would you? Do you think the dead come back and watch the living?
I don't believe it.
I wonder if she doesn't come back here to Manderley and watch you and Mr. De Winter together.
Oh, she can be really quite scary in that lighting. Mrs. Danvers is purposely putting pressure on her.
I want you to get rid of all these things.
These are Mrs. De Winter's things.
I am Mrs. De Winter now. I prefer to forget everything that happened this afternoon.
Oh, seems she's taking charge.
What have you been doing with yourself?
Oh, I've been thinking.
Oh, what do you want to do that for?
Could we have a costume ball, just as you used to?
You'd have to be a hostess to hundreds of people.
I've never been to a large party, but I could learn what to do, and I promise you, you wouldn't be ashamed of me.
She's taking initiative. Gotta admire that she's rising up to the challenge.
What will you be, Alice in Wonderland with that ribbon around your head?
I'll design a costume all by myself and give you the surprise of your life.
Sketching is coming to good use now.
They were just some ideas I was sketching for my costume for the ball.
You might find a costume among the family portraits that would suit you. I've heard Mr. De Winter say that this is his favorite of all the paintings.
Well, that's a splendid idea, Mrs. Danvers. I'm very grateful.
I think Mrs. Van Hopper was right when she said that this girl is not ready or doesn't know how to be a lady, but she's learning how, and it's never too late to learn.
Oh, this wig's so tight they ought to have sent an aspirin with it.
Hello.
Oh, where's the child?
She's keeping her costume a terrific secret. Wouldn't even let me into her room.
Pardon me, sir. You forgot this.
Oh, that's bouncy.
Oh, please don't come in, Beatrice. I don't want anyone to see my costume.
Oh.
Now, you're sure I look all right? You look ever so beautiful.
Looks very beautiful. And she's so excited too. Look at her run. I hope Mrs. Danvers didn't purposely suggest this costume because that's how Rebecca dresses.
Good evening, Mr. De Winter.
Oh no.
What are you standing there for? Didn't you hear what I said?
I knew it. Mrs. Danvers had malicious intent. She told her about this dress on purpose.
I watched you go down, just as I watched her a year ago. Even in the same dress, you couldn't compare.
You knew it. What have I done to you that you should ever hate me so?
You tried to take her place. You let him marry you. I used to listen to him, walking up and down, suffering torture because he'd lost her. You thought you could be Mrs. De Winter. You can't fight her. No one ever got the better of her. Never, never. He doesn't love you. He wants to be alone again with her.
That's ridiculous.
You've nothing to live for, really, have you? Look down there. It's easy, isn't it?
Oh, she's evil.
Go on.
Like a devil whispering across her shoulder.
Ship on the rocks! Ship aground! Sending a rocket!
Maxim!
She should tell Maxim to fire Mrs. Danvers. She's too dangerous to have around. She really tried to get her to commit suicide.
Have you seen Mr. De Winter anywhere?
She won't come back, will she? You said so.
What? What does he mean?
The diver who went down to inspect the bottom of the ship came across the hull of another boat, a little sailboat.
Frank, is it?
Yes.
Ooh. No wonder Maxim didn't want to stay in Manderley. Perhaps he's right. He shouldn't have come back. They would have been happier if they just remained in the south of France.
Have you forgiven me? My stupidity about the costume.
I'd forgotten. I was angry with you, wasn't I?
Can't we start all over again? I don't ask that you should love me. I won't ask impossible things. I'll be your friend, your companion.
But it's too late, my darling. We've lost our little chance of happiness.
What do you mean?
The things happen. The thing I've dreaded day after day.
What?
Rebecca has won.
Won what?
She knew that this would happen.
Rebecca's boat.
It's just a coincidence.
There was a body in there.
What?
She wasn't alone.
It's Rebecca's body lying there on the cabin floor. The woman that was washed up at Hitchcock. That was not Rebecca.
So you misidentified her?
I identified it, but I knew it wasn't Rebecca.
You knew?
I knew where Rebecca's body was, lying on that cabin floor on the bottom of the sea.
Wait, is he admitting to a murder?
I put it there.
I just got a little bit of goosebumps just now. But if he loved her so, why did he kill her? And then get all depressed about it? It was all guilt. So he gets angry not because he's sad, but because he feels guilty.
Maxim, why didn't you tell me before?
Yeah, you did sometimes, but you never seemed close enough.
How could I even ask you to love me when I knew you loved Rebecca still? Whenever you touched me, I knew you were comparing me with Rebecca.
You thought I loved Rebecca? I hated her.
Oh, that's a revelation. Okay, that's why he killed her. And that's why he gets angry when she tries to imitate Rebecca.
Breeding, brains, and beauty. And I believed him. But I never had a moment's happiness with her.
You didn't love her. You didn't love her.
Do you remember that cliff where you first saw me in Monte Carlo?
Uh-huh.
She stood there laughing and told me all about herself. Things I'll never tell a living soul.
What did she say?
It wouldn't make for sanity, would it? Living with the devil.
So Rebecca was probably like a sociopath or a psychopath.
You look rather foolish trying to divorce me now after 4 days of marriage. So I'll play the part of a devoted wife. People will visit us and envy us, say we're the luckiest, happiest couple in the country. What a grand joke it'll be. I kept the bargain, and so did she. But after a while, she began to grow careless. She started to bring her friends down here. Then there was a cousin of hers, a man named Favel.
Favel.
Favel used to visit her here in this cottage.
Rebecca's favorite cousin. Now it has a different meaning.
I couldn't stand this life of filth and deceit any longer. She was expecting Favel, but he hadn't come. She looked ill. Queer. Suddenly she got up. When I have a child, she said, neither you nor anyone else could ever prove it wasn't yours.
Oh,
Watch my son grow bigger day by day, and to know that when you die, Mandalay will be his.
Damn. The straw that broke the camel's back.
What are you going to do about it? Aren't you going to kill me? I must have struck her. She looked almost triumphant. Suddenly she stumbled and fell. And I realized she was dead.
It was an accident.
Who would believe me? I carried her out to the boat. It was very dark. There was no moon.
That's why it showed the moon getting shouted at the intro.
I opened up the sea cocks and the water began to come in fast.
Does anyone else know this?
No one except you and me.
If they find out it was Rebecca, you must simply say that you made a mistake about the other body. Rebecca's dead. She can't speak. She can't bear witness. She can't harm you anymore.
I told you once that I'd done a very selfish thing in marrying you. But understand now what I meant.
Better not answer that.
Colonel Julian called. He's the chief constable of the county. He wanted to know if I could possibly have made a mistake about that other body.
It's happening. It's been so long, her body could have rotted.
I did make a mistake about that other body. Nobody can blame you for making a mistake. I suppose Mrs. De Winter went below for something and the squall hit the boat. Tad, boat builder, will undoubtedly come to some such conclusion.
Ooh, very unexpected indeed. I love the reveal, love it. I've quite a bit to say, but I'll leave it for after the reaction.
I'm worried about what you'll do at the inquest tomorrow. No matter what he asks you, you won't lose your head.
Don't worry, dear.
I want to go to the inquest with you. I promise you I won't be in any trouble to you, and I must be near you so that no matter what happens, we won't be separated for a moment.
It's gone forever. That funny, young, lost look I loved.
She has experienced much.
You've grown so much older.
When one experiences certain things, they change. They look the same, but at the same time they change, and you just can't explain it.
You remember the late Mrs. De Winter, don't you?
She's gone.
Were you on the shore that last night she went out when she didn't come back?
I didn't see nothing.
Did you see Mrs. De Winter get into her boat that last night?
I don't know nothing. I don't want to go to the asylum.
I mean, sir, the seacocks.
What are the seacocks?
Yeah, what are that? What are those?
Seacocks are the valves to drain out the boat. They're always kept tight closed when you're afloat.
That rhymed.
I found they'd been open.
Are you implying?
That boat never capsized at all. And there's them holes.
What holes?
Them holes looked as if she'd made 'em from the inside.
Can you think of any reason why there should be holes in the planking of the late Mrs. De Winter's boat?
Well, of course I can't think of any reason.
Can you enlighten us as to why Mrs. De Winter should have wanted to end her own life?
I know of no reason whatever.
Were relations between you and the late Mrs. De Winter perfectly happy?
I won't stand this any longer, and you might as well know now. My wife should spit.
Oh. Could he have nearly confessed?
If you hadn't fainted like that, I'd have really lost my temper.
Darling, please be careful.
Oh, she really saved him from a confession.
Hello. And how does the bride find herself today?
You don't think I'm the big bad wolf, do you? I'm a perfectly ordinary, harmless bloke.
You know, Max, old boy, I really think I ought to talk things over with you. Those holes that were drilled from the inside.
He's trying to blackmail them.
She wrote to me the day she died. I can assure you that it is not the note of a woman who intends to drown herself that same night. I don't know if you've ever experienced the feeling of driving an expensive motor car that isn't your own. I've often wondered what it'd be like to retire to the country. I've never figured out what it would cost a year, but I'd like to talk about it with you.
It will cost less than murdering you right now.
Mr. Favell and I have a little business transaction on hand. I think we had better conduct it over at the inn.
Yes, you might bring me a large brandy and soda. How about you, Max? Have one on me. I feel I can afford to play host.
Getting cocky now, is he?
He offered to withhold a vital piece of evidence from the inquest if I made it worth his while.
I only want to see justice done, Colonel.
Jack, darling, I've just seen the doctor and I'm going down to Mandalay right away. I have something terribly important to tell you.
Now, does that look like the note of a woman who had made up her mind to kill herself? It's blackmail. Pure and simple.
Blackmail is not so pure, nor so simple. Be careful, Favell. You brought an accusation of murder.
The witness who will help supply the motive. Who was Rebecca's doctor?
Dr. McLean from the village.
I said Rebecca's doctor in London.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, don't give me that. You knew she was in love with me, didn't you? Surely you haven't forgotten the good times she and I used to have down at the cottage on the beach.
Isn't that illegal back then? And still illegal in some places here?
It has been suggested that Mrs. De Winter was deliberately murdered.
But there's one more thing you'll want to know. The name of the murderer. George Fortescue Maximilian De Winter.
Dr. Baker, 165 Goldhawk Road, Shepherd's Bush.
There's where you'll find your motive.
Don't tell me Rebecca was pregnant.
She would have told me.
She told Max about it. Max knew he wasn't the father, so like the gentleman of the old school that he is, he killed her. Aren't you rather afraid that the prisoner, shall we say, might bolt?
You have my word for it that he will not do that.
Let's leave the unhappy couple to spend their last moments together alone.
Got a bastard, isn't he?
Are you sure you don't want me to go with you, Max?
No, darling, it'll be very tiring for you. I'll be back the very first thing in the morning.
Concerning the late Mrs. De Winter's activities on the day of her death. If anyone of that name paid you a visit on that date?
I've never attended a Mrs. De Winter in my life.
Oh, did Rebecca use a fake name?
No De Winter.
Are you sure?
Campbell, Stedall, Perino, Danvers,
Danny?
Danvers?
The lady must have used an assumed name.
This is a surprise. I've known her a long time. You want to know if I can suggest any motive as to why Mrs. De Winter should have taken her life? Yes, I think I can. The woman who called herself Mrs. Danvers was very seriously ill.
She was not going to have a child.
That was what she thought. My diagnosis was different.
She had a tumor, cancer.
What was wrong with her?
Cancer.
No wonder she provoked Max that night. She wanted him to kill her. She knew she was gonna die soon.
Did she say anything when you told her?
She smiled in a queer sort of way. When I told her it was a matter of months, she said, "Oh no, doctor, not that long."
She was gonna make Max kill her. She wanted to go out with a bang. She wanted to bring someone down with her in her final moments.
I never had the remotest idea. Neither did Danny, I'm sure.
Blackmail is not much of a profession. We know how to deal with it in our part of the world.
If you ever need a new car, Colonel, just let me know.
He got out of there real fast.
She lied on purpose. She foresaw the whole thing. That's why she stood there laughing when she...
Don't think about it anymore.
How, Danny? Rebecca held out on both of us. She had cancer. And now Max and that dear little bride of his will be able to live happily ever after.
I asked her to go to bed, but she wouldn't hear of it. I can't get over the feeling something's wrong.
Oh, Mrs. Danvers better not be up to something evil again. Because I dare say the only danger left in the house is Mrs. Danvers. Jasper, protect her.
That can't be the dawn breaking over there.
It's in the winter that you see the northern lights, isn't it?
No way. Fire. Oh my god, Mrs. Danvers is insane. She would kill the whole household and all the butlers and maids there.
Fred! Mrs. Where is she? I thought I saw her. Where?
Oh, I think Jasper saved her.
Mrs. Danvers. She's gone mad. She said she'd rather destroy a man to live and see us happy here.
Oh yeah, she's gone mad indeed. So she'll willingly burn herself to death in the room of the person she adores. That's just madness. Now that I think about it, of course nothing happened to the current Mrs. De Winter. After all, she narrated the story at the intro, didn't she? From beginning to end, we never got the name of the girl. Did we? Maybe Mrs. Van Hopper mentioned her name or something and I just forgot to write it down, but
5 minutes later.
Nope, I'm pretty sure no one mentioned her name. It was Mrs. De Winter all the way. So I'm gonna refer to her as Joan because the actual actress's name is Joan Fontaine. So I'm gonna refer to her as Joan for easy reference. This is a movie without any action, but I feel like there's this uniqueness to it, just like its movie poster is unique. And I can see that in this movie, a lot of people hide their real thoughts, a lot of people hide their real emotions, such as, for example, at the beginning we see Mrs. Van Hopper, who, after she heard about the engagement, she was acting all happy, congratulating him, offering to arrange his wedding and stuff for him. But deep down, she actually feels loathsome towards Joan. And she felt like she didn't even deserve Mr. De Winter. And after that, we see Mrs. Danvers hiding her emotions. Like she's acting like she's expressionless, a professional head of the housemaid. But deep down, she despises Joan for even daring to marry Maxim. And on the other end of the spectrum, we see Joan, who is an innocent girl who wears her heart on her sleeves, and she's honest and pure. That's why I feel like Mrs. Van Hopper wasn't very off the mark when she said that Joan is not ready to be Mr. De Winter's wife. Like, she is not ready to face the cruel world, not ready to know how to be a great lady. That was partly true, but throughout the course of the movie, Joan faced all these things which forced her to grow up, you would say. It forced her to learn about the cruel truth of the world and of human characters. And she got older, or should I say she matured. I feel like the movie also shows the devils of the mind, you know? Like, we make assumptions about so many things. So in the movie, Joan assumes that Maxim is deeply in love with Rebecca, and every time he spends time with Joan, then he thinks about Rebecca. That's what Joan thinks. But it couldn't be far from the truth, because Maxim despises Rebecca, and Rebecca was not as perfect as Mrs. Danvers made her to be. Mrs. Danvers said that, I mean, everyone says that, you know, Rebecca was smart, beautiful, did I say intelligent already? You know, intelligent and the perfect woman, basically. But nothing is as it seems on the surface. So it goes back to the point where I said everyone hides their true self, everyone hides their emotions. So on the surface, everyone sees Rebecca as the perfect woman, but deep down, she is far from that. And she made Maxim's life a living hell. Based on this point, the thing that this movie taught me, or should I say the thing that this movie reminded me, is that we should not always assume the intentions or the thoughts of people. It's better to clarify it with them. If Joan wasn't so afraid of clarifying things with Max, then perhaps all this wouldn't have happened. I mean, not that it wouldn't have happened, but at least Joan wouldn't feel so bad or feel like she doesn't have any self-worth because she can't compare herself with Rebecca. And that's the second point, which is don't compare yourself with others. You are who you are. If today you are better than yourself yesterday, then that's a win. You don't have to compare yourself with people who are, you know, on a different path than you. Max loved Joan for who she is, and when Joan tried to make herself more like Rebecca, it made Max angry. And Joan misunderstood Max's anger. Your mind will always assume the worst. Our minds have evolved to always assume the worst case scenario because it's more like a survival mechanism. So rather than assume things, try to clarify it with the person. There was one particular scene here which when Max was describing what happened that night when Rebecca was killed, and the camera was panning, showing that, oh, when Rebecca was lying on the bed, when she stood up, when she walked towards Max, I can see that Hitchcock reused this technique in Rope, when Rupert was, you know, describing the scenario and the camera followed the entire thing happening. Mrs. Danvers is so much more malicious than she initially seemed. But yeah, overall, I feel like this is a great movie, very interesting, very intriguing. And even though it's one of Hitchcock's first movies, one of his earliest movies, he still did a pretty good job on this one. One last thing I would say is that the reveal by Max that he was the one who murdered Rebecca, now that was completely unexpected, did not see the twist coming at all, and I was not prepared. But it was a very nice twist, which thankfully turned out to be a very happy ending. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.